You're listening to 834's award-winning podcast, The Happy Hour Hustle. We offer listeners the chance to experience the musings, or ramblings depending on how many glasses of wine she's had, of the one and only Kimberly J. Bodie as she interviews notable clients, upstanding community members, and random passerby. Nominations and awards pending.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Happy Hour Hustle. We are chatting this week with Nicole Rodammer, who is the managing director at Ellie's Place, Grand Rapids. So I'm going to have, before we kind of jump into everything, I'm going to have Nicole kind of give an overview of what her position is, what the mission of Ellie's Place, Grand Rapids is, and then we're going to talk more about nonprofits, what it's like to work in a nonprofit, how you get your nonprofit to stand out when there are so many nonprofits in the world, especially in this West Michigan community.
Absolutely.
But before we start out with that, the very first question I have to ask you, which is probably the most important one, is what is your favorite cocktail?
I'm not necessarily a huge...
You drink a lot of beer, don't you?
I do. I'm a huge beer drinker.
That's okay. That counts, I guess.
Yes. So, and I always have an array of beers at our house. So... And there isn't necessarily a favorite one. I mean, obviously...
What kind? Is it like an IPA?
I love the IPAs. I'm big in like the sour. So like Jolly Pumpkin that just opened with the sour. And they're a great addition. So just having that kind of unique kind of like bite too of the beer.
You like to punish yourself for drinking a little bit.
I do.
Yeah.
I end up with like heartburn afterwards. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Why not
like
drink a beer if you're going to end up in some kind of pain?
All right, so jumping back into nonprofit, let's talk a little bit about Ellie's Place. First of all, what does a managing director even do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Still trying to figure that out.
Every day is a new day as far as that title is concerned. So I just figure out a little bit more here and there, just piecing it together 2 years in, But what I do is Ellie's Place is a part of 4 locations statewide. And so we have an Ellie's Place, Michigan that runs out of Lansing, which is our headquarters. And then we have Lansing, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Flint that are all a piece of this larger Ellie's Place entity. And so each location has its own managing director because we are overseeing all four of us by a CEO. So we run the operations, the day-to-day operations in each one of our communities. We do a lot of the awareness. We do a lot of the community building. We do a lot with our volunteer base. And then we also, majority of what we do is fundraising. So making sure that we have the money available to run the programming that we have here in Grand Rapids. And so making sure that we're working with different partners in the area so they're aware of the resources that we provide. And so it's a lot of community building, a lot of operations, and a lot of fundraising would be like the main pieces.
And we'll go a little bit into your background in a second because you obviously have experience within fundraising.
Yes.
So what's really cool, I became familiar with Ellie's Place. It was a very long time ago before you were even there.
Yes.
And the mission of it is very, very unique and very... a little bit heartbreaking, if you will. So maybe if you can just kind of give an overview of what the organization does.
Sure. So what we do is we're a healing center for grieving children and teens. And that doesn't tell a lot about what we do. When we say that, it's kind of our tagline as far as what we do, our little elevator speech, if you may. But what we really do is we work with children to make it so it's not like they're grieving alone. And because a lot of times when you experience the death of a parent or sibling or whoever it may be, it kind of makes you the odd man out. People don't know how to talk with you. Even adults don't know how to talk to one another after the death of somebody. You may find yourself avoiding them. You may find, I'm going to say the wrong thing. I don't want to upset them any more than they already are upset. And so just imagine being 7 and trying to figure that out. So a lot of times their peer network will leave them. They don't know how to talk to their parents because their parents are grieving as well. They don't know the feelings that they are feeling, so a lot of times they think they're dying themselves because their feelings are just so inside of them. And so what we do is we build peer-to-peer support groups. So it's a 7-year-old talking to a 7-year-old. We work with children 3 through 18 and 18 to 26. And slowly they start to understand what they're going through. We do activities. We do writing. We do a variety of different activities, a lot of movement with our younger ones, our 3-year-olds, because they can't sit still for the life of them. But slowly it's building this new peer network, and it's really building this experience of, I'm not the only one who's having night terrors. I'm not the only one who's feeling angry at the person who died. And slowly they learn to heal and they start to cope after the death of someone in their lives.
So a lot of it's validating their feelings, letting them know those feelings aren't wrong. And what I think is super cool too is a lot of those individuals then go on to be volunteers or sometimes even board members, but they stay involved with the organization because it's done so much good in their life.
Yes, because it's a lifelong journey. So we understand that grief is never going to go away. You know, you're never going to, it may get smaller. It may not feel like you're carrying a big, huge rock on the back of your shoulders, but it's always going to be with you.
Yeah.
And so how do you learn to cope and how do you learn to handle those feelings the rest of your life and into adulthood? And that's where we see a lot of our volunteers and a lot of the people who have been engaged as children coming back and now volunteering because they know the power of what our programming does for them. And even on a day-to-day basis where they may be at work and they're, you know, feeling sad, or there may be a moment and they say, okay, well, I also need to adult today. So how do I kind of move through these feelings and, you know, start to kind of be able to handle the rest of my day? So which is great because then we can have the power of people who have experienced programming speaking to their experience, which is a powerful moment as well when you have that kind of, you know, 180-degree kind of 360 type of turnover where you have those people coming into adulthood.
Well, and I think that and this is a different way than I kind of wanted to go with this discussion, but I think what's so interesting is what you said earlier is grief doesn't leave you.
No.
It is always with you.
It is.
So whether that's a loved one, a friend, or someone that passed away, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't. No.
I mean, and that's I think that we expect that's the case, but I think what you get over time is that pain dulls, but then there's also those very sharp reminders.
Absolutely. And we call it the waves of grief. So it's not, you know, it's 6 stages and you're done. You know, I went through I went through denial, acceptance, whatever. Yep. Okay, well, now I'm done. I can move on. Well, that's not the case. And so we talk about it as waves. You know, having, you know, a daughter who's lost her dad, who's, you know, planning her wedding, and knowing that she may not have her dad walking her down the aisle. I mean, we deal with these in small doses. I mean, that's a large one, graduation. Big life experiences where you want that person to be with you and they're not. And so how are you going to be able to kind of cope with those feelings and cope with those emotions? Now, a lot of times we experience people coming back into our programming. So sometimes they may start with us, they'll have some life circumstance happen, and then they'll start again. So, and that's absolutely fine because, again, we understand that it's a lifelong journey.
Well, and I think too, like, you know, it's hard. People obviously grieve in their own ways, but it's also very hard to be vulnerable. It's something I struggle with on a daily basis, and I think you know, so you probably do have people that come in and then they feel uncomfortable and then they maybe leave, but then they come back understanding that, you know, LA's Place is part of that healing process.
Absolutely. And it is. And it's hard to say, you know, I need help with this process. Right. I don't know how to talk to my child about cremation. I don't know how to talk to my child about, you know, whether or not they should actually come to the funeral or not. You know, is this going to scar my 3-year-old? Are they going to end up in therapy? I don't know. So just being able to kind of answer some of those questions and saying, you know, no, yes, you're okay. This is fine. They can ask these questions. You can be honest in your answers. You can be honest in your emotions. You don't have to pretend like everything's okay because it's not okay. So I think just kind of understanding and being vulnerable and being honest in those feelings helps a child kind of understand their own feelings as well. But it's difficult because taking that first step and saying, yes, okay, we need somewhere like LA's Place to come in and so we can feel like we're normal. We constantly hear the reference to, you know, when you're dealing with the death of somebody in your life, it makes you feel like you're in your swimsuit and everybody's staring at you and no one knows how to approach you and just you're kind of like, you know, oh, how are you? I'm so sorry. And so, but coming to LA's Place is like being on the beach where everybody's in their swimsuit. Everybody's vulnerable, everyone's emotional, everybody, you know, has that that they're carrying with them. And so being able to talk to people and speak with people where they don't feel like they have to, you know, put on a bold face and put on a happy face is really powerful. Well,
and, you know, you find too, and this comes from my own experiences, when you allow other people in to support you, that process, it's not necessarily easier, but it's manageable.
It really is, yes.
So, okay, so anyway, off that heavy subject, we're still talking about it, but okay, so you have worked in nonprofit and you have not worked in nonprofit.
Yes.
But you started out nonprofit, then you did like for-profit, and then you came back to nonprofit.
I did.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I know, seriously.
Right? Because that's more stress. It's longer hours.
I mean,
this is a very heavy mission you guys have. So
We do.
what drives you to continue to do this?
It's interesting because going back and forth and experiencing both worlds in very different ways, I always compare it to, you're doing something for a greater good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working for a for-profit, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with the people that do, but you're working for someone's end goal, someone's own pocket.
Yeah.
And so being able to say, what can I do to better a certain population? What can I do to better a certain group of people? And I think a lot of times when you work in nonprofit, you have your own reason for doing that. And for me, Ellie's Place really spoke to me because of the fact that I have experienced my own death and of my dad, and so I understood what it's like for our kids. And I experienced it at 21, and I know how confusing that was at that age. And so, now being able to say, okay, we can provide this programming and not have people feel like they're alone and not feeling like they have nobody to talk to and no one to turn to. So I think a lot of times when you talk to people in nonprofit, that's what they kind of focus in on. There's something in them that's spoken to them and said, this is the reason you need to do what you do.
There's something very personal that attaches them to the mission.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's just you want to help somebody. You just want to be that person who's providing something to somebody else. It's the reason we get up in the morning. It's the reason we do the long hours. It's the reason that, we put our organization sometimes before our own family.
Right.
And, a lot of times the people that we work with become our family, and the people that we serve become an additional family as well. So, because we understand the importance of what we do. And we're just very, very, and everyone says, very mission driven. Mm-hmm. And very passionate.
Well, and I think too, I know as a small business owner that is something that your entire family feels.
Right.
So I think that's interesting too. You have 3 kids, 3 young kids. You're obviously married. You have a dog.
I do, yeah.
So that was the most important one for me.
Yep,
but
baby,
right. So I mean, your families get drawn into it as well.
You do, yes. And it's great because it makes them advocates, and it makes them really understand the power of philanthropy and understanding the power of giving back, and on a very intimate level because they're involved with what you're doing, and they understand that, they know Ellie's Place. They go to Ellie's Place, on the weekends and play, and they understand, and they know the families, and they are very engaged with what they volunteer at events. It's just, you see them out there with their little Ellie's Place shirt on. But it's really great, and I really love that because I grew up with that understanding of that community aspect, of that philanthropy aspect as well, and so I want my kids to understand it, and they're going to understand it at such a deeper level than, normal children in a suburban community. So
it's building empathy in them too, I would say. And I think that sometimes that's lacked a little bit in, because you maybe necessarily haven't needed to have that or have ever really experienced it yourself.
No, and I think it's important too because even on my own personal level, I mean, my son now trying to place my dad into our family structure, how does that work? How does that look like? How does that, I ask questions of our Ellie's Place staff all the time. And so it's great to have them understand that this is why this is here, because there are families that do have these missing links, that have these missing people, and we miss them, and we want to still remember them, and so being able to provide these type of opportunities is really important.
Okay, so you obviously know we're in West Michigan, and that is a very large. We are a very philanthropic community, which is amazing. But that also means there are a lot of nonprofits in town.
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
That's not saying one mission is better than the other.
No, absolutely not.
And I know that the nonprofit community is actually very close knit. But what do you do to really to better communicate or to communicate your mission, but also for Ellie's Place to really stand out in the sea of nonprofits we have here?
Right, and we're also, on a flip side of things, also considered very new. We're celebrating 5 years, and so we were a baby in the Grand Rapids philanthropic community, and so it's also not about just standing out, but it's about making kind of waves too, and getting people to understand who we are and what we do. And we do a lot of work around it, and it's really important for us. And it may just be my background because I come from this world, but having a strategy, having a plan, having a PR strategy, having a communication strategy, having all of that kind of intersect with what we do with our donor communications, with what we do for our donor stewardship, for what we do with awareness and collaboration. Everything has a plan behind it. Everything has we've taken the time to really carve out and say, these are the things that we want to do. Here's the goals that we have. And here are the ways that we want to make sure that we achieve those. And so, yes, okay, it's great to get out and be in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. And yes, okay, it's great to be out and get it out in front of TV or whatever, to get out there and say this is what we do. But I think at the heart of it, it's really about that strategy. It's really about communicating with your donors. It's really about educating people, like for us, about grief. It's a really heavy conversation, but it's one that everyone understands. And Sheryl Sandberg has made a really good impression as far as, what that looks like now. So it's opened up the gates to mental health too. And being a part of that conversation is really important at a high level, to be engaged with what's going on in your community at that level too, and to have people just understand what you do. So we've tried really hard to make sure that we're not just like throwing things,
right?
See
what sticks.
Yeah. This will be fine. Don't worry about it. We don't have a plan for it. We're just gonna see if this works. Because it ends up being a waste of people's time, and that ends up, being a waste of resources. Right. And for nonprofits, you have a small team, you have people working a lot of hours, and so we want to make sure that we are using people's time effectively, having a plan in place, and making sure, for us that our board understands what that plan is, our community understands what we're doing.
Well, where that money's being spent too.
Exactly.
And I think you and I have had this conversation in the past. One of the first things nonprofits a lot of times do is they cut that marketing spend. Well, that marketing and that that communication strategy is often what is going to set them apart in a sea of other competitors. Essentially, that's a callous way to say it, but that is essentially what other nonprofits are.
It is. You don't want to be the best kept secret,
right?
By any means. And so you really have to be, and it is hard because that is a piece of it where, you'll look at it and say, well, this isn't important. Mm-hmm. We have to meet with people and we have to do, to get our name out there. And that's, that's a piece of it too. But we really want to make sure that, you have a strategy and a plan behind what you do as well.
So how can people find out more information about Ellie's Place?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, www.elliesplace.org, or they can give us a call as well, 616-301-1605. We have staff members there 9 to 5 Monday through Friday that can answer any questions that people have, related to grief, any questions related to just, we have resources available as far as different community partners. So if Ellie's Place doesn't work for them, we have other resources.
Which is amazing. Yep. And you also have, you do I think it's Healing Hearts.
We do. So we have the Healing Hearts Breakfast, which is coming up May 7th. It's our largest fundraiser. So we'll be celebrating 5 years at that this year. So we'll be doing a lot around kind of our founding donors, our founding managing director, and we'll be looking at probably close to over about 500 people at that breakfast.
Well, and I really encourage people in the community, if you don't know much about Ellie's Place or if you want to find out more, come to this breakfast. It is obviously a fundraising breakfast, and you will cry and also give money, but if you don't want to, that's fine. But it is a really great place to learn about Ellie's Place.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So, well, thank you, Nicole, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Nonprofits are near and dear to my heart as well. I think the majority of people in GR started out in nonprofits, so we all have a connection somehow. But again, Ellie's Place is, you can find them online at, say again.
Yep, www.elliesplace.org.
Okay, perfect. Yep. And then, tune in to our next Happy Hour Hustle where we chat with movers and shakers in the community and try and educate you on marketing trends and things that are coming down the pipeline. So cheers, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.